Early one summer morning outside Prescott, a man in his 60s sat at a table on his own property, drinking coffee before starting work on the cabin he was building. There was no food left out, no cooler, no trash. Just a man, a chair, and a quiet stretch of wooded hillside he had walked 100 times before, land he knew as well as anyone could know, a piece of ground they were slowly turning into a home. An adult black bear came out of the brush and attacked him without warning. Neighbors heard him screaming and ran toward the sound, shouting and blaring their car horns to try to drive the bear off. It would not let go. By the time someone was able to grab a rifle and shoot the animal, the man was already gone. When investigators looked over the scene afterward, they could not find a single thing that would have drawn a bear in. No food, no cooking site, no water source nearby. Officials called it exactly what it looked like, a predatory attack on a man doing nothing more than sitting quietly on his own land. What unsettled Arizona wildlife officials was not just the attack itself, it was how little sense it made. This was only the second fatal bear attack the state had on record, going back more than 3 decades, and it did not follow a single one of the patterns they had spent years teaching people to watch for. No garbage, no cubs nearby, no warning growl or bluff charge first. Just a bear that walked out of the trees already knowing what it wanted, in a state where black bears are supposed to be the least of anyone's worries. If you live anywhere near bear country in Arizona, tell us your county in the comments, because the pattern we are about to walk through has almost certainly shown up somewhere near you already. Now, before we go further, let us be fair to the animal. Because on paper, Arizona is about as safe from black bears as any bear state in the country. Wildlife officials have only logged a small handful of bear attacks on people since their records began in the early 1990s. And out of all of them, only 2 have ever been fatal. Arizona's bears are desert adapted, shy by nature, and built to avoid confrontation with anything bigger than a javelina. For most of the state's history, a black bear sighting was treated as a rare and mostly harmless event, the kind of thing that made the local news precisely because it almost never happened. But hold on to that number, because the 2 fatal cases this state has on record do not read like an unlucky coincidence. They read like a pattern. Go back to the case that came before the man on his property. Years earlier, a woman in her 60s was walking her dog late at night near a golf course community outside Pinetop when an adult male black bear attacked her without any apparent provocation. She was on a paved residential path, well lit, close to homes, exactly the kind of place people are told is safe. The mauling did not end quickly. She fought back the entire time. It was, at the time, the first fatal black bear attack recorded in the state's modern history, and wildlife officials described the same unsettling detail they would use again years later. No food, no cubs, nothing that should have triggered an attack like that. There is a way wildlife officers learn to read the difference between a bear that is scared and a bear that is not. A defensive bear is loud, jumpy, easy to spook, and looking for the fastest way out of a situation. A bear that has already decided to hunt moves differently. It comes in quiet, low to the ground, ears pinned back, closing distance in a slow and steady line without making a sound, sometimes drifting sideways through the brush instead of walking straight at you. If a bear is doing that, it already knows exactly what you are. Go back further still, and the pattern gets even harder to explain away. In the mid-90s, wildlife officers near Tucson captured an adult male bear that had been getting too comfortable around a campground, and released it back into the forest, the standard practice at the time. That same bear returned to the same campground and seriously mauled a teenage girl. It was the case that changed how the state handles problem bears permanently, and it left officials with an uncomfortable question they still bring up decades later. If a bear that has already shown aggression toward a person is capable of coming back and doing it again, how many quieter warning signs are being missed on bears nobody has flagged yet? The policy that came out of that single attack still governs how Arizona handles aggressive bears today, which tells you how deeply that one case rattled the people whose job it is to manage this population. And notice who these attacks tend to find. Not careless campers leaving coolers open, a man drinking coffee at his own home, a woman walking her dog on a paved path near a country club. a teenager at a developed, regularly patrolled campground. These are not people doing anything wrong. These are people going about an ordinary morning or an ordinary evening in a place they had every reason to feel safe, in some cases on their own land, inside the boundary of a home they were actively building with their own hands. This is where the easy explanation runs out of road. If this were only a story about bears trained on garbage, these attacks should cluster around dumpsters and trailheads littered with trash. They do not. One happened on private property under construction with nothing edible in sight. Another happened on a quiet residential walking path at night in a neighborhood built specifically to feel safe and manicured. Neither one fits the story of a bear that just wandered in for an easy meal. If your own town has had a bear encounter that never quite added up, tell us about it in the comments, because it might be exactly the kind of case we dig into next. County, neighborhood, or just the general area is plenty. We are not asking for an address. So what is actually going on? The first piece is habitat collapsing in on itself. Towns like Prescott, Flagstaff, and Payson have expanded steadily into forested terrain that used to belong almost entirely to black bears. Cabins, subdivisions, and hiking trails now sit inside the exact elevation bands where Arizona's bear population has always lived. Wildlife officials in the region have said it plainly. The state is expanding into habitat that bears have held for eons, and the overlap is only getting tighter as more people build homes deeper into the tree line. A road that used to mark the edge of bear country 20 years ago now runs straight through the middle of a subdivision, and the bears never got the memo that the boundary moved. To them, it is still their forest. To the new homeowner 2 lots in, it is a quiet cul-de-sac with a nice view. The second piece is something wildlife biologists studying Arizona's bears keep coming back to: individual temperament. Bears, one researcher who studies the state's population put it, are as individualistic as people. Some are mellow around humans their entire lives and never cause a single problem. Others are highly aggressive from a young age, regardless of how much or how little contact they have had with people or with garbage. That variation alone means 2 bears living in the exact same stretch of forest, eating the exact same food, drinking from the exact same creek, can react to a human encounter in completely opposite ways. One will bolt at the first sound of a voice. The other will hold its ground and start closing distance. No amount of clean campsites or secured trash cans changes what is already wired into that second animal, but even that does not fully explain it. Because temperament alone does not tell you why a specific bear, on a specific morning, decides that the man sitting at the table is worth the risk instead of simply walking away like almost every other bear would. Which brings us to the piece the research keeps circling back to. In Arizona and everywhere else, black bears are studied. When investigators looked closely at the small number of truly predatory black bear attacks recorded across the country, the profile that keeps showing up is strikingly narrow. The overwhelming majority are adult or subadult male bears, animals with larger territories, more contact with people simply by covering more ground, and according to some researchers, a genuinely different tolerance for risk built into their behavior. Females, especially those raising cubs, are built around caution and avoidance. Their whole strategy is to stay hidden and protect what they already have. Adult males have no cubs to protect and far more ground to cover, which means far more chances to cross paths with a person in the first place. Nationally, studies of confirmed predatory attacks have found that the vast majority, well above 9 out of 10, were carried out by males. Both of Arizona's fatal attacks were carried out by adult male bears. That is not a coincidence the state's own biologists are comfortable dismissing. None of these 3 pieces closes the case entirely on its own. Habitat overlap tells you where the odds of an encounter are rising. Individual temperament tells you why 2 bears in the same forest can behave in completely different ways. And the pattern around adult males tells you which bears are statistically more likely to be the ones who cross the line. Stack them together and you still cannot predict, on any given morning, which specific bear, on which specific hillside, is the one that matters. You cannot look at a healthy adult male bear standing at the tree line and know, just by looking, whether he belongs to the overwhelming majority that will turn and disappear into the brush, or the rare exception that will not. Arizona's own wildlife officials have called cases like these highly uncommon and unusual, in nearly the same breath every time one happens. They know it occurs. They cannot reliably tell you in advance which bear it is going to be. None of this means the Arizona backcountry or a quiet cabin outside Prescott is somehow dangerous ground. The overwhelming majority of black bear encounters in this state end exactly the way wildlife officials expect them to. The bear sees you, it leaves, and the only proof it was ever nearby is a set of tracks near the trash cans the next morning. That has not changed, and it is not going to. Most bears, in most encounters, on most mornings, want nothing more than to disappear back into the tree line before you even finish reaching for your phone. But the old assumption that Arizona simply does not have a black bear problem, that this is grizzly country's issue and not the desert's, was always a statement about the average case. It was never a guarantee written into every bear roaming these hills. So the next time you are outside in bear country in Arizona, whether that is a hiking trail near Flagstaff or your own back porch near Prescott, run the same checklist wildlife officers use every day. Is it restless, noisy, keeping its distance, looking for a way out? Then it is doing exactly what the overwhelming majority of Arizona black bears do every single day of their lives. It is a little wary of you. Good. But if it is silent, low to the ground, ears pinned back, staring straight at you, closing the distance in a slow and unhurried line, without a sound, you are looking at the profile. The state's own wildlife officials still cannot fully explain, and it has likely already decided what you are. There will be no growl to warn you, and no second chance to reconsider what you just saw. Somewhere in the wooded hills above towns like Prescott, Payson, and Pinetop tonight, a few of them are still out there, quietly moving through the same tree lines that new cabins and subdivisions keep pushing closer to, crossing backyards and dry washes most homeowners never even know exist. And the truth that no Chamber of Commerce brochure is ever going to print is a simple one. Arizona still does not fully know what makes one of its bears cross that line. It only knows that, every so often, one of them does, and that the two who already have looked almost exactly like every other bear in the forest, right up until the moment they did not. If your state has a predator hiding in plain sight just like this one, tell us which one in the comments because it is probably already on the list for our next video. And if you want to keep seeing which animals are quietly rewriting the rules across the American wild, hit subscribe because the next one is already on its way.